Imagine walking into a state-of-the-art AI data center. You are surrounded by row after row of massive, multi-million-dollar server racks. You see the flashing blue LEDs, hear the deep hum of the ventilation, and spot these thick power cables snaking through the ceiling. It is very easy to stand there and think, wow, artificial intelligence is a game of pure silicon, advanced mathematics, and massive electrical grids.
It really is, Theo. We focus on the software, the neural networks, or the giant power plants feeding the grid. But if you peer inside those server racks, you discover a physical reality that is far more fragile than most people realize. In fact, the entire global rollout of AI, the actual number of cutting-edge chips that can physically ship to customers this year, does not depend on how many raw silicon wafers a factory can print.
That sounds completely counterintuitive. If it's not raw silicon wafer fabrication, what is actually holding back the floodgates?
It comes down to two quiet, physical choke points that rarely make the front page headlines. The first is advanced packaging. Even after you print a world-class logic chip and manufacture the ultra-fast memory to go with it, you cannot actually use them until they are bonded together with microscopic precision. And the second choke point? It is water. Plain, simple liquid cooling.
Think about that. A multi-million-dollar AI supercomputer cluster backed by billions of dollars of venture capital can be completely sidelined because there aren't enough microscopic slots available on a specialized silicon base, or because a coolant pump is sitting in a warehouse.
Exactly. Today, we are looking past the high-level code to explore these physical enablers. We'll show you how a chip assembly method and a plumbing system have become the ultimate gatekeepers of the AI revolution.
One small thing up front. We genuinely love these companies as stories, but we're explaining them, not recommending them.
So treat all of this as food for your own thinking, not financial advice. Stay curious, stay a little skeptical, and make your own calls.
Welcome back to Follow the AI Money. I'm Theo.
And I'm Maya. We are glad you're here. This is episode 4 of our educational journey mapping out the physical architecture and the capital flows behind the artificial intelligence boom.
Before we dive in, let's establish our ground rules. This channel, The Working Thesis, operates under a strictly educational mandate. Today, we mention several public companies like TSMC, ASE, Amkor, Eaton, Eaton, Shinko, Vertiv, Schneider, Ecolab, Eaton, and NVIDIA, purely as public examples to illustrate physical and economic concepts. We do not provide financial advice, make buy/sell/hold recommendations, set target prices, or hold personal financial positions in any of the companies we discuss. We analyze this landscape through a neutral consensus lens.
Yes, keep those filters on. Our goal is to teach you how to analyze the value chain for yourself using what we call the bottleneck lens. In our earlier episodes, we explored how massive capital waves pool at specific physical choke points when they hit structural limits.
But today, we want to introduce a critical nuance. Not all bottlenecks are created equal. Just because a technology is 100% mandatory for AI to function does not mean it is a high-margin, high-moat business.
That is the big lesson today. We will contrast advanced packaging, which is a high-moat, highly consolidated bottleneck that controls global chip output, with liquid cooling, which is a mandatory but highly competitive platform shift. By running both through our 3-question screening framework, we can see exactly where the real structural pricing power lies.
Let's start with advanced packaging. When you read reports about GPU shortages, the media almost always blames chip shortages or wafer fabrication. But engineers on the ground will tell you printing wafers isn't the actual limiter. The real bottleneck is advanced packaging, specifically TSMC's CoWoS.
Let's unpack that. CoWoS stands for Chip on Wafer on Substrate. To understand why it's so critical, we have to look at how a modern AI accelerator is physically built. In the old days, you had a central processing unit, and a few inches away on a green circuit board, you had some memory chips. That works fine for a personal computer, but for AI, the speed of light and electrical resistance across those inches are far too slow.
AI models require an absolute mountain of data moving at blinding speeds. To solve this, chip designers use high-bandwidth memory, or HBM. Instead of placing memory inches away, they place 8 to 12 vertical stacks of HBM directly adjacent to the main logic processor, with microscopic distances between them.
And you can't solder these on a standard circuit board. The connections are thinner than a human hair. They must be mounted onto a microscopic silicon slice called an interposer, which acts as a data superhighway. This ultra-precise assembly is TSMC's proprietary CoWoS technology.
This means the absolute limit on AI chip production is not the number of silicon wafers coming out of the extreme ultraviolet lithography machines. The limiter is the number of advanced packaging slots available on the interposer. If you do not have a packaging slot, you do not have a finished, functional AI accelerator. And right now, those packaging slots are the most heavily contested real estate on Earth. According to reports from TrendForce and Tech Insights, TSMC's CoWoS capacity is effectively sold out through 2026.
It is a complete lockup. CNBC has reported that major tech giants are scrambling to secure capacity years in advance. Consensus estimates indicate NVIDIA has aggressively booked over half, some say over 70%, of TSMC's next-generation CoWoS-L capacity. That's about 800,000 to 850,000 wafers pre-booked for 2026 for Blackwell and Rubin.
TSMC is ramping capacity as fast as possible. Consensus data shows TSMC is boosting CoWoS output from around 75,000 to 80,000 wafers per month to between 120,000 and 140,000 by the end of 2026. That's roughly a four-fold increase compared to late 2024.
OSATs like ASE and Amkor are also jumping in. ASE is tripling its specialized packaging capacity, which they call CoWoP, to between 20,000 and 25,000 wafers per month by late 2026, while Amkor is expanding advanced packaging in the U.S. With OSATs, total industry capacity could approach 200,000 wafers per month by late 2026.
Yet even with this multi-billion-dollar expansion, the supply-demand gap only narrows from 20% to about 10% by end 2026. Meaningful relief is really a 2027 story.
Exactly. Quoted lead times stand at 18 to 24 months. Order today, and it won't ship until 2027. And when CoWoS packaging and HBM memory are tight simultaneously, this compound constraint creates a double-gate bottleneck that locks out everyone except the largest players.
Let's map out the physical value chain. TSMC is the undisputed king and gatekeeper. But because TSMC wants to focus on the bleeding edge, they offload simpler redistribution layer, or RDL, and chip-on-wafer work to partners like the OSATs.
Exactly. Underneath the assembly, you find ABF-substrates. This is a tight oligopoly where the top 5 players, led by Unimicron at 22% share, alongside iBiden, Shinko, AT&S, and Nanya, control roughly 74% of the market. And the ABF film itself comes almost exclusively from Ajinomoto. It's an invisible hinge upon which the global technology industry swings.
While glass substrates from Intel, Samsung, and Corning pilots are next-decade disruptors, near-term packaging is getting harder, not easier, as chip designs evolve. This directly addresses question 2. Does next-gen technology widen the moat?
Absolutely. We're shifting to CoWoS-L with local silicon interconnects, SoIC 3D vertical stacking, and hybrid bonding, which replaces microbumps with direct copper-to-copper oxide bonding.
NVIDIA's upcoming Rubin combines 4 reticle dies, HBM4, CoWoS-L, and SoIC. But since hybrid bonding yields are immature, the resulting yield drag actually widens the moat for whoever masters it first. It's the same logic die integration story deepening the HBM4 moat from episode 2.
And panel-level packaging pilots like CoPoS are slated for 2027 to 2028. Every step forward in performance requires a massive leap in precision, keeping packaging a highly durable, high-moat bottleneck.
Once those packaged chips are turned on, you hit an uncompromising wall of physics, extreme heat. We are transitioning from chips that sip power to thermal monsters.
Historically, air cooling blew cold air through raised floors. But with chips crossing 1,000 watts and AI racks hitting 3 to 5 kilowatts plus per chip, air cooling is physically obsolete. Air simply cannot absorb heat fast enough.
To keep these systems running, liquid cooling is no longer an optional upgrade. It has become an absolute physical mandate.
The transition is breathtaking. Industry consensus from Market Decipher shows liquid cooling jumping from 15% of AI compute in 2024 to about 75% of newly deployed AI compute by 2026. NVIDIA's Blackwell and Rubin systems are designed to be virtually 100% liquid-cooled.
This shift also saves massive power. Cooling is about 40% of a data center's energy footprint. Moving to direct-to-chip warm water cooling, using 45 degrees Celsius water, lets operators bypass energy-hungry chillers entirely.
At a typical 50-megawatt site, warm water cooling saves over $4 million a year. Hyperscalers are adopting it because the efficiency gains directly impact their bottom line.
Let's break down the architectures. Cold plate, or direct-to-chip, commands a 65% market share. Coolant-filled copper plates are mounted on the chips, embedded directly by OEMs like Dell, HPE, and Lenovo.
Immersion cooling submerges the server in non-conductive dielectric fluid. It's the most efficient, hitting a PUE of 1.02 to 1.05, but remains a niche for ultra-high-density setups because of specialized tank infrastructure.
Regardless of the architecture, you need CDUs, coolant distribution units, to pump and regulate the fluid. Under ASHRAE 2026 standards, CDUs are now mandatory, making them a physical supply bottleneck and a major competitive lever.
The market is exploding, growing from around $8 billion in 2026 to nearly $29 billion by 2033, an annual growth rate of 20 to 31%.
This growth triggers a massive M&A land grab. Industrial giants realize owning cooling is as strategic as owning power. Look at the massive consolidation over the last year or two.
Vertiv, the #1 independent supplier with an 11 to 12% share, offers a full stack from CDUs to cold plates and immersion.
Schneider Electric acquired Motivair to scale up CDUs for 10-megawatt AI factories. Ecolab acquired CoolIT for about $4.75 billion, combining direct-to-chip hardware with global water management and cooling as a service. And Eaton acquired Boyd Thermal for roughly $9.5 billion to unify power distribution and cooling. Plus, Invent, Delta, Submer, LiquidStack, Acetec, and Asperitas are all fighting for market share. This brings us to the core teaching moment of our bottleneck lens. On paper, advanced packaging and liquid cooling look identical. Both are mandatory and growing rapidly.
But their economic profiles are night and day. Question 1. Is it real and mandatory? Yes, for both. Question 2. Does next-gen tech widen the moat? Yes. Complexity is skyrocketing for both.
But question 3, pricing power, is where they diverge completely. TSMC has a near monopoly on CoWoS. The packaging barrier to entry is astronomical, taking years, billions of dollars, and deep IP. If you want a top-tier AI chip, you wait in TSMC's line. That is durable pricing power.
Now look at liquid cooling. It is mandatory, yes, but the market is fragmented with over 15 vendors and no industry standard for couplings or fluids. Hyperscalers can source from multiple vendors, so individual cooling makers have weaker pricing power. It's highly competitive.
Exactly. Pricing power doesn't sit in a simple copper cold plate. It accrues to platform consolidators like Eaton, Vertiv, and Schneider Electric, who integrate power and cooling into turnkey systems backed by long-term service contracts.
This is why we screen. One is a structural gatekeeper controlling output. The other is a high-growth land grab where you must own the platform integrators. Mandatory doesn't mean pricing power.
So, let's locate these two on our overall bottleneck map. When we look at our 3 duration tiers, where do they land?
Both sit squarely in our medium fragility tier. They aren't permanent multi-decade limits like utility grids or rare minerals, because we can build more factories. TSMC is quadrupling packaging capacity, and cooling makers are scaling up. But because technologies are migrating rapidly, these bottlenecks persist as major limiters for several years.
Physically, both sit directly above raw compute and apps. They are the physical enablers. Without packaging, the chip cannot exist. Without liquid cooling, it can't run.
But we must keep the core structural risk in mind. Because both choke points sit at the physical enablement layer, they are highly derivative. They depend entirely on our Episode 1 thesis, the hyperscaler CapEx staying fully funded.
Exactly. If cloud providers slow down infrastructure spend, the supply gap in packaging and cooling evaporates overnight. They are highly sensitive to the capital cycle, which is a vital risk factor to watch. What an incredible episode, Maya. We covered a lot of ground today, from microscopic silicon interposers to massive industrial cooling pumps. Let's do a quick recap. First, the real physical limit on AI chip supply isn't just printing the silicon wafers. It is the advanced packaging slot. If you don't have a CoWoS slot, you don't ship a finished chip.
And second, mandatory does not automatically translate to individual pricing power. Liquid cooling is an absolute physical certainty for the high-density AI era. But because of vendor fragmentation, the real economic value is pooling with the large-scale integration and platform consolidators rather than the makers of generic components. That is the exact kind of discriminating insight the bottleneck lens is designed to uncover. You have to ask, who has the structural moat to defend their profits when competition arrives?
Exactly. It's about finding where the economic value actually pools, rather than just chasing the fastest-growing technology segment. That's a trap that many people fall into during major secular tech expansions. Next time, in Episode 5, we are zooming out to look at the macro horizon. We're going to tackle the biggest question of all. Where exactly are we in this AI capital cycle? Are we nearing a cyclical peak, or are we just laying the physical foundation for a multi-decade build-out?
It is going to be a fascinating conversation, and we can't wait to share it with you. Thank you so much for watching Follow the AI Money. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to The Working Thesis. We will see you in the next episode.
See you next time.
That's a wrap for today. Thanks for thinking it through with us. We're just testing our theses out loud, one day at a time.
Catch you on the next one. Stay curious and tell us where we're wrong.